Ever since he came into our lives, he became one of the family. But now he's gone. Time goes by so fast, I wonder if she'll remember him as she grows older without him. Fond Recollections offers us a chance to remember him when he was young and full of life. With Fond Recollections memorial plaques and website, we can upload all our photos and videos of him. Visit fondrecollection.com today and cherish the happy memories of your loved ones.
Tyler. Prologue. The lights flickered eerily at St. Mark's Baptist Hospital in the corridor that led up to the neonatal intensive care unit, or the NICU. It always unsettled new nurses, how the fluorescent white light suddenly dimmed and crackled, scaring them witless and recalling countless scenes from horror movies based in hospitals. However, life at the hospital was not so bad. The hospital staff was competent with the patients and mostly had a good relationship with each other. However, since this night in question was New Year's Eve, most of the staff had requested holiday leaves or simply called in sick. The night promised to be calm anyway, with only 6 preterm newborns in the unit. The 3 nurses that were working at the time had just completed 5 hours of their 12-hour shift. After finishing their scheduled care times for each newborn, they began to settle into the waiting room to see the world celebrate the new year on television. They sat, exhausted in their scrubs, drinking tepid coffee and blending into the bleak hospital atmosphere. The only issue the nurses were experiencing during this time was the medical gas panel alarms going off intermittently. Most of the staff just considered it a cause of mild agitation rather than any real alarm. Apart from the quiet beep, beep, beep sounds from the hospital machines and the gentle hiss from the gas panel, there were no sounds of pain or anguish or screaming, which are common in a hospital like St. Mark's. The NICU at St. Mark's Baptist Hospital is at level 3 and has the capacity to care for 12 newborns prematurely. The babies currently housed in the unit all suffered from health issues, as they were premature newborns. Some of them had genetic health issues, while others were severely underdeveloped. Some babies had to face life-threatening issues during birth, which could affect them throughout their lives. These cases were the saddest, as they could develop both physical and mental impediments. Such impediments frequently lead to slow brain development, which could lead to learning and speech impairments. These babies are always given top priority, round-the-clock care by the hospital staff, especially the nurses, who always must keep a watchful eye in case anything happens. These babies are often transferred from the delivery room directly to the NICU within 24 hours of being born. The vibe of the hospital was different tonight, possibly because it was New Year's Eve. 3 nurses were assigned to work the NICU. They specialized in managing critical cases. One of the nurses must always be available and on call, so each of them takes separate breaks. One can easily identify the NICU nurses by their standard navy blue scrubs and white closed-toe shoes. These are the same nurses that are also on the medical code team for their department. Being on the medical code team means each of the nurses has a specific duty within their list of responsibilities. Each of the nurses have their own specific task. 2 of them oversaw the dispensing of medication, including sorting out all the pills for different babies, labeling them by name and dose, therefore ensuring that each newborn gets the proper medicinal cocktail. The remaining nurse must ensure that all incidents that happen during their shift are properly recorded. This is the standard procedure for St. Mark's and is usually followed diligently. However, it being New Year's Eve, the staff's attitude was a bit more lax than usual. The babies were all asleep peacefully. There were not even many attendants around, so it was a calmer night than the hospital had seen in a while. Considering how slow things appeared to be, the 3 nurses decided that they might as well take their break together. Everything was under control, and they deserved to chill out a little. Like everyone else, they wanted to see the big ball drop in Times Square on television. One of the nurses lamented how she wished she could be out there, drinking and counting down the New Year's with others, observing merry people, but she sighed and contented herself as the others were enjoying their celebration in person. Next year, She can get the night off, and she would be able to see it for herself. Before they could meet in the staff break room, however, the nurses each had to take a care round of the NICU, performing checks on each of the babies. Their duties included checking each baby's chart to see their readings to compare previous readings. They also checked to see if the baby's blood pressure was normal, that they were breathing properly, and that they seemed relaxed and not in pain. Then, they had to enter the data they gleaned from their observations into the baby's medical charts, respectively. St. Mark's Baptist Hospital had top-of-the-line equipment, including the latest EMR, Electronic Medical Record Program, which was a top-notch universal database that kept updated information on each patient without any glitches or faults. It was a godsend for the nurses because it made keeping track of the care check time simpler. In days past, that kind of information was stored in file cabinets. Often it could take hours just to dig out a patient's record from the mountains of filing cabinets in some dusty record-keeping room in the hospital. The system would automatically notify the nurses through a communications or comm system by sending them an alert to their hospital-issued cell phones if a patient records were overdue for a periodical inspection. This knowledge served as a sense of security for the nurses. They knew that the system would alert them if any issues should suddenly arise. Their phones would ping and they would rush to the NICU. At precisely 11:50 p.m., they head out to the staff break room together. However, before the upcoming planned break, they decided to make one more care round at the NICU. They all promptly started to perform their care checks again, looking at which newborns were about to fall asleep. A tiny little baby girl with sparse blonde hair on her head and has oxygen tubes stuck up her little nose. Her tiny chest was heaving up and down gently, signaling that she was about to fall into a comfortable sleep. Adjusting the newborn's pink hospital-issued blanket, one of the nurses lightly stroked her golden hair and then made some checks on her chart, before moving on to the next baby, a petite boy with strong symptoms of cerebral palsy. His condition was also stable at the time. The nurse was about to finish her checks on her chart when she heard the medical gas panel alarm sound again. It was disconcerting, as the alarm had gone off once before during the same work shift. One of the co-workers quickly pushes the mute button on the medical gas panels to silence the alarm before it wakes up the babies. Because usually they would all start wailing together, creating a nightmare situation. It was always difficult to get all the babies to quiet down again. Luckily, the babies managed to remain asleep. The medical gas panel is used for a specific purpose. The hospital staff uses it to monitor gas pressures and vacuum levels of the medical gas pipeline. The last medical alarm that sounded unnerved the staff, though. The lead nurse went and checked on the medical gas panel, but it was working properly, so she did not look too closely. It was not their job anyway. That was the biomedical staff's job. She thought, why would the nurse take on more work? Tonight, there was clearly an issue with the medical equipment in the NICU. The equipment was faulty in some way. The biomedical staff would come and fix it the next day. Chapter 1. Code Red, and who is in charge? Nurse Kimberly was anxious to get over the routine checks because she did not want to miss watching the ball drop to usher in the new year.
Linda, Renee, are you done yet? Hurry up. We have 8 minutes until the new year.
Linda follows obediently, but Renee remains behind, fretting.
Something is off with the medical gas panel. Which button should I press?
She asked the other two anxiously.
It has several options. Repeat alarm, adjustable 1 to 60 minutes, or off.
She explained. Linda and Kimberly already had one foot out the door, with Kimberly holding the door impatiently tapping her foot. When Renee did not get an immediate response, she shouted out exasperatedly,
Hell, which one?
Linda sighed.
Just turn it off for now. The babies are asleep anyway, and the ones will fall asleep eventually. While they do that, we can finally count down for the new year. Come on, it's just a 10-minute break. It's not like something's going to go wrong in 10 lousy minutes.
Renee looked uncertain.
I don't know. I am not comfortable with all of us going on break at the same time. We all know well that it's against hospital policy.
Linda rolled her eyes.
Girl, relax. It's just for 10 minutes, not 10 hours. If we cannot party like everybody else, at least we can watch the damn ball drop on television while being stuck in this place.
Kimberly firmly affirmed her statement. Renee felt uneasy but reluctantly went along with the other two. I mean, they are right, she thought. It is just 10 minutes. Renee turned off the medical gas panel and walked into the break room, sinking into one of the threadbare couches that the hospital was nice enough to leave for the staff. They turned on the ancient fat screen TV. Yes, fat screen, not flat screen, like those TVs from the 90s that were still bulky and came with antennas. They quickly changed the channel to see the New Year's Eve coverage of Times Square, where the celebrations were in full swing. A celebrity diva had just butchered a set of holiday songs by obviously lip-syncing through the entire performance, clearly looking uncomfortable, like the $1 million paycheck she received to be there was not enough motivation to actually sing at the show. She was wearing a tight, form-fitting beaded dress that barely fit over her giant, surgically enhanced behind. The butt itself was magnificent, but it made her movements comical and awkward on stage. Kimberly snickered at her.
Man, I can sing better than that. I have heard you sing at Dr. Singh's retirement party. During karaoke, you sounded like a cat in heat.
She guffawed. There were 5 minutes until the New Year's ball dropped.
We have 5 minutes left. Let's get some cute pics.
Kimberly suggested. The girls quickly fixed up their hair that they had up in buns and ponytails all day long. They finger-combed through their brown, red, and blonde hair respectively, hurried putting a slick layer of gloss on their lips. They dabbed some of their cheeks as an afterthought to give themselves a rosy glow under the pale fluorescent hospital lights that wash out even the most brilliant complexions. Linda, Kimberly, and Renee took some cute selfies hurriedly before the countdown, using the best Snapchat filters to make them look presentable. It was important for them to have cute pics of the night. They might be nurses at work, but even they wanted to feel sexy on their social media post. While the celebration in the break room was underway, something nefarious was occurring in the now unattended NICU. A mysterious figure had sneaked in through the back entrance of the NICU through the staff locker room. This person quickly surveyed the surroundings and discovered that all the newborn babies in the NICU were without supervision. There was not even a guard posted outside the door. The mysterious person also noticed that the gas alarm panel had been turned off. Gleefully, the figure realized their plan panned out even better than anticipated. Wearing latex gloves, a white lab coat, and a surgical mask, the person blended right into the hospital backdrop. Walking towards the medical equipment panels, and the person purposefully started turning off the main oxygen valve that led straight to the NICU department. Peering through the glass windows, the individual watched dispassionately as the newborn babies writhed and shudder in discomfort, trying to gulp in desperate breaths of precious air, but unable to get any in their underdeveloped lungs. The figure saw a little blonde-haired girl turn from a healthy pink to a dark purple as the capillaries in her eyes burst from the lack of oxygen. Her extremities turned blue. The little oxygen tube that was attached to her nose hung there uselessly. Her tiny fists finally unfurled, the final breath escaping her body. The newborn boy had gone limp as well, turning an unusual shade of burgundy. Some of the babies started choking on their own saliva, gurgling and coughing, desperately trying to breathe. And then, silence. Their little faces are black and blue. Their tiny, preemie bodies are limp and lifeless. The whole debacle did not take more than 90 seconds. It was easier than getting candy from a baby. The individual laughed silently. The mysterious figure did not take their candy, but took their breath away. The person left, with a swish of their lab coat, swiftly exiting the NICU without being spotted by a single member of the nursing staff. Meanwhile, the nurses were clueless about the incident that had just occurred in the NICU. Linda even opened her bag and brought 3 tiny bottles of champagne.
Cheers, ladies. Here's to ringing in the new year. If not in style, but at least in spirit. That's right. That's right.
Agreed the other 2 nurses, clinking their mini champagne bottles as the people on TV chanted, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year!
The nurses all hugged each other and wished each other a Happy New Year. Of course, their actions were surely extremely against the hospital rules, but the nurses thought they deserved a break for a night. They know drinking at any job is a no-no, but is considered especially reprehensible in a medical institution. However, since it was New Year's Eve, they decided to make an exception to the rules for one night. The ball dropped, and the nurses were in a festive mood. The bubbly had put them in good spirits, and they brought a piece of chocolate cake from the cafeteria to add to the celebration. Then they called their friends and loved ones, FaceTiming them to wish them a happy new year. The 10-minute break soon turned into 25 minutes, and no one even noticed or remembered to check on the babies. They did not want to ruin the happy atmosphere by returning to the bleak hospital routine so soon. When they finally realized the time, Renee decided it was time to pack up.
Kimberly, Linda, we need to go back to work now. Make sure you get rid of the bottles if you want to keep your jobs.
Oh, Renee.
Kimberly giggled, draping her arm around Renee's shoulders.
What would we do without you?
Linda laughed and dumped the bottles, and the three of them walked merrily back to the NICU, with Kimberly making her best impression of mocking the celebrity singer. When they reached the NICU, it was evident that something was very, very wrong. The gruesome sight stopped them right in their tracks and sobered them up immediately.
Code Red!
Renee yelled.
There's something wrong with the babies.
The nurses watched in horror the horrific scene before them. They were terrified, and rightfully so. Kimberly was paralyzed in her spot as her bloodshot eyes spanned the massacre before her. Linda gently pushed her inside, with Renee quietly sobbing as they went from incubator to incubator, looking at each newborn. The baby's skin taking on garish, unnatural greenish-blue hue. The blonde baby girl had burst blood capillaries in her once baby blue eyes, so full of light. A tiny droplet of blood was trickling from her eye, like a scarlet tear. Linda moved on to the next baby, who was equally blue in the face. She screamed for Renee and Kimberly to help her, jolting them out of their stunned paralysis.
Girls, snap out of it.
She yelled.
There is something extremely wrong with the babies.
The nurses' training took over, overriding their fear as they jumped into life-saving mode. In the NICU, they frantically continued checking each incubator, finding each infant motionless inside. Renee still was in denial.
Shh! Why are you yelling? You will wake the babies up.
She cried pitifully.
The babies are dead or dying, you moron.
Kimberly yelled angrily.
Linda, keep calling a code red until we get more help.
Linda fumbled clumsily inside the pocket of her scrubs, pulling out her hospital-issued cell phone to call a code red again throughout the hospital. St. Mark's Baptist Hospital did not normally have such devastating emergencies in the NICU. Code red was serious business. All the nurses, the entire staff at the hospital knew what this code meant and how urgent it was. It meant all hands were needed on deck. Staff from all the other departments in the hospital will now be rushing to assist them. The three nurses assigned to the unit were concerned because they knew that sooner rather than later, the questioning would begin.
All the babies are dead?
Linda trembled, sobbing uncontrollably.
How did this happen? What is going to happen to us?
She put her hands over her head and sank to the floor. The gravity of the situation finally hit her, and her legs gave out beneath her.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Linda cried.
We're going to get fired. We're going to get fired. Oh, my God. What if they send us to jail?
She dissolved into hysterics, mumbling.
This cannot be happening.
Repeatedly. Kimberly walked up to her and firmly grabbed her by the shoulders, lifting her off the floor and on her feet.
Pull yourself together. Are you a medical professional or not?
She asked firmly.
Remember your training.
Kimberly commanded.
Check the baby closest to you and help the best you can. Administer CPR. Cover the baby's mouth and nose tightly with your mouth. Alternatively, cover the nose and hold the mouth shut, like so.
She demonstrated the method on the closest baby. She pushed up the baby's chin with her finger.
Lift the chin up, like so. Keep it lifted.
She pushed the baby's head to one side.
Make sure the head is tilted.
She bent down and breathed 2 short breaths into the baby's mouth.
Like so.
She kept breathing into the baby's mouth gently, pressing the baby's chest and giving her chest compressions.
Keep calm.
Kimberly repeated.
Keep administering your CPR, just like I showed you. We must resuscitate these babies.
Renee and Linda quickly spring into action, immediately trying to resuscitate the babies closest to them. There were a total of 6 newborns in the hospital. Kimberly was trying to resuscitate the blonde baby girl, while Linda was trying to help the newborn boy. Renee was trying her best to give CPR to another baby with curly hair, whose teak skin had turned the color of purplish wine. As the nurses were desperately trying to revive even a single newborn, 10 nurses from other departments burst into the NICU. They immediately started trying to revitalize the remaining 3 infants. Chaos ensued. Amidst the ruckus, Amber Taylor, the nurse in charge of the night shift, entered the NICU. After taking a moment to take in the situation, she immediately takes charge, trying to bring some semblance of order to the scene playing out in front of her. She started issuing commands immediately, instructing the nurses regarding what to do. Her years of experience and training were evident in the calm and rational ways in which she instructed the nurses on what steps to take to give the babies their best chance of survival. The other nurses followed her lead without question, grateful for a firm, guiding hand, helping them work through the terrible crisis. The nurses tried their best, working intensely to try to save the babies. They did everything, from CPR to injecting adrenaline directly into their hearts. They even tried to resuscitate them using a defibrillator. Nothing worked. Babies are extremely fragile creatures, especially preemie newborns, and it takes hardly a few minutes to suffocate the life out of them. All the newborns in the NICU were already ill and suffering from various health problems, so snuffing out their lives was an easy feat for the murderer. They were too weak to move themselves out to a position where they could breathe. They could not even cry out. Unbeknownst to the entire staff, the mysterious figure's goal had been accomplished. Kimberly, Linda, and Renee are alert and sober now, knowing full well that they were about to get their asses handed to them. They had broken the rules big time. They had left their unit unattended. What is more, they had been drinking in the break room. Amber Taylor thought to herself, so what if it was New Year's Eve? So what if they had checked on the babies before going? Where was their presence of mind? How dare they turn off the gas alarm panel for their own convenience? The room was strangely quiet, like the calm before the storm, but the storm had already hit. Now it was just a matter of who would be blamed for the incident. Amber Taylor was known around St. Mark's to be a hard-nose. She was tough, she took no prisoners, and could smell a lie from a mile away. Because she was in the business of keeping people alive. She had no interest in insipid or incompetent nurses. She especially hated workers who did not follow the rules, and right now she was sure she was in the presence of 3 rule breakers, who had deliberately flouted their authority. They had neglected their duties and jeopardized the hospital's entire future. Amber thought, for what? Amber was determined to find out what was so important that all 3 nurses had to be on break at the same time. She had a suspicion that there was a New Year's Eve celebration going on, that it may have influenced the nurses' gross negligence, and to make matters worse, she thought she could smell alcohol on Nurse Kimberly's breath. Amber had made sure that the 3 nurses had experienced the full brunt of the remaining staff's ire before she summoned them into the break room. She loudly commanded,
NICU staff, follow us to the break room right now.
Her voice had echoed across the vast tiled hall. She ushered the 3 flustered nurses into her NICU staff break room away from the others, and requested a security guard to block the door to ensure that none of the nervous nurses tried to flee the room. Amber Taylor wanted answers, and she wanted them immediately. Kimberly, Linda, and Renee slowly shuffled behind Amber and the security guard, feeling the accusatory glares of the other staff members on them as they passed. They could hear the cries of the staff members as they placed blankets over each baby's corpse. They felt as though they had entered some weird Twilight Zone, as if they had been dropped into a horror movie and had no idea how to escape.
Ladies, enter and close the damn door behind you.
Amber Taylor's harsh voice cracked like a whip, breaking their apparent trances. Sobbing, they stood shamefaced in front of her, still in disbelief. The deaths of the newborns weighed heavily upon their minds. They could not bear to think about the lives they had just destroyed with their negligence. The lives of different families, their hopes and dreams, died along with their children. Shuddering, they forced themselves to look at Amber, waiting for the other shoe to drop as she began her questioning. She sat down authoritatively in the chair at the head of the break room table as Kimberly, Linda, and Renee stood shivering before her. She knew they were waiting for permission to sit down, which she did not grant them. She wanted to watch them squirm. The more nervous and afraid they become, the more likely they would be to blurt out the truth. One of them would be the first to break and sell out the others. She just had to wait and see who would be the first to crack.
Hanging out with us. If you had fun or picked up anything from this episode, please assist by hitting the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. You can also comment and share our content. These small things really help our channel and means a lot to us. Also, special thanks to our Patreon supporters. You guys are the heartbeat of this channel, and we can't thank you enough for being so generous. If you'd like to join our Patreon community, please click on the link below. You can contribute as little as $5 per month. You can get all kinds of perks. You can even buy merchandise of your favorite characters at our shop store. Click on the link provided below. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, remember you are cherished by us, so be kind and know that we consider you as family.